The video game industry is finally beginning to make the transition to pricing games at $69.99, $10 more than we're normally accustomed to paying. Are they really justified in making that adjustment, though? Let's talk about it. Hi everyone, I'm Mike from Byte-Size Impressions, and for as long as most of us can remember, video games have been $59.99, but it hasn't always been that way though. As a product of the 80s and 90s myself, I often recall seeing games on retailers' shelves go for $65, $70, or even $75. It wasn't until some point after that where the industry collectively decided that $59.99 was going to be the sweet spot for pricing, and to their credit, they stuck with it for a really long time. Over the last handful of years, though, developers and publishers alike have been trying to make the case that $59.99 is no longer a sustainable price point, and the price has to go up. That sounds really good on paper. After all, yes, development for video games has exploded during the time that we've been paying the same price, and they haven't even taken inflation into account over the years. I would like to point out, though, that while game development costs more than it ever has, there are also more people that are playing and buying video games than ever before, too, which to me probably seems like it's sort of a wash. I would also like to challenge publishers and developers to ask themselves if they're being fiscally responsible with the development process. I mean, we see this sort of thing happen all the time, right? You have a single player franchise where all of a sudden they decide to just start throwing in a multiplayer mode that's not really good and nobody asked for and nobody's going to play just because they want to put everything, including the kitchen sink, into a package. And it's worked the other way too. We see multiplayer heavy franchises where they started trying to throw in a single player campaign, and all we really ended up getting were two modes that felt half-baked instead of one really solid experience. That's a waste of time, of money, of resources, and talent, and undoubtedly it costs a lot more money to produce that game as a result, and they want us to foot the bill. I think developers and publishers also have to ask themselves if it's worth making a game that somebody can play for 100 hours when it's just sort of a okay experience, when they could really tighten down the size of the world that they're creating as well as the narrative focus so that we could have a really solid 20, 30, or even 40-hour campaign that's much more enjoyable overall. But more than that, an even bigger problem that I have with this argument that they're making is that yes, the initial price point to get into any given video game has remained $59.99 for a super long time. But the industry has found many ways around that price point to get us to spend even more money on their products. That's why games as a service is such a huge thing these days. You know, starting way back at the beginning of the Xbox 360, we've had paid DLC, DLC packs, season passes, microtransactions, loot boxes, you name it, and these things have all been very, very lucrative for these companies. I mean, that new game, Genshin Impact, which is a free-to-play game that came out, has already earned over $50 million in microtransactions alone. Trust me, it's a lucrative business for these companies. Now, are these publishers and developers going to start getting rid of microtransactions and the like if they increase the price of games by $10? Something tells me that's probably not going to be the reality. They're probably just going to increase the price of the games as well as continuing to sell their season passes and everything else, which should be a cause of alarm for many people, except so many people are hyped up for the next generation consoles that they're not really paying attention to this shift in price. And where we're going to first see this price increase is with first-party titles on the PlayStation 5. And talking about the upcoming consoles, that's a really good point to bring up because it's 2020 and it's been a very hard year for many, many people for mental and emotional reasons as well as financial reasons. And yet these companies are still deciding to drop their brand new consoles this year, where the high price point for both of these machines, the Xbox Series X and the PS5, is $500, but it's not just $500. It's $500 plus tax, plus $70 for a first-party game if you're buying from PlayStation, as well as however much it costs to get into multiplayer gaming. And despite the fact that so many people have been dealing with so much this year due to everything that's been going on, it just seems to me like it's very insensitive for Sony to still push forward with this price increase right now. I mean, I get it. I know what they're doing from a business standpoint. If you're going to change something so drastically about your business model and you expect the people to just roll on board, you have to do it at the beginning of the generation of whatever console you're selling. The same thing happened with the PS4, right? On the PlayStation 3, if you were to play on PSN or, through multiplayer with your friends, that was free. But they wanted a piece of the same pie that Microsoft is getting with Xbox Live Gold. So they decided we're going to gate multiplayer access behind PS Plus. And they did that with the opportunity that the PS4 had provided them. So it makes sense that they're doing the same thing now. New generation, new games, new price point. But this is Sony. This is the same company that said they wouldn't be surprised, they wouldn't be upset if people were to go out and get 2 jobs to buy a PlayStation 3. Yes, Sony's just going to be Sony. And I know that some of you probably don't want to hear that and you think I'm just saying that to hate on Sony, but I'm not. I'm platform agnostic. I love Sony, I love Microsoft, I love Nintendo, I like the game on the PC. I have no favorites as far as that's concerned. But the point is, if this is going to affect you, if this is going to impact you in the way of how many video games that you're going to be able to buy in any given year, how many games you're going to be able to enjoy in any given year, this is something that you really have to think about. And I know a lot of people are excited right now with trying to get PS5 pre-orders and just getting their hands on the console with the next month and cracking it open and playing new games on it. But this is something that shouldn't be overlooked. They're using the hype of the PlayStation 5 in order to sort of distract from the fact that games are going up in price. If this upsets you, if this is something that you don't want to see continue, I would get on Reddit, I would get on Twitter, or any of the message boards that you frequent that talk about games and bring this up and make this an issue so that Sony at some point backs down. Because if this does well for Sony, and I have no reason to believe that this won't be anything but a success for Sony, you can expect to see other publishers follow suit with that price point in the not too distant future. So again, I would just ask yourself, is now the right time for them to really be pushing a higher price point in games upon us? No, I personally do not think so, and I think that's something that you should get online and fight for. Anyway, thank you very much for checking out the video. I'm Mike from Byte-Size Impressions again, and you can check me out at Twitch, link down in the description below, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like this video, please consider giving a like, subscribing, and clicking the little bell so that you can be notified any new content goes live. Until next time.